for treaty bodies like the Chemical Weapons Prohibition Organization in The Hague, as well as other parts of the UN system. So it's something that when you tell people about your job, they they tell you that this is the purpose and the passion space of work. But finding it's not for, not everyone comes into this space from this feeling of I'm going to do good, or this will be my big contribution to the world. For a lot of us, entering this space is something that, it's partially motivated by it's a great opportunity. This is where you take your political science degree and go, because what else do you do with a political science degree? But when you are there are some very important lessons that I've learned about having a purpose and the way that you can make an impact in the little things you do. And I also learned very important lessons about how lost you can feel, because if you're talking about the impact space, if you're talking about the development space, it's huge. Especially in the international system, you're confronted with a world that's experiencing climate change, and there are millions of children who don't have access to vaccination or even 2 essential meals a day. There's a huge education sector, there's a huge water and sanitation sector, and if you're working in the peace and security space, it's even more difficult to feel like you're having an impact, because you could be working in probably one of the only ways in which the international system tries to build peace, which is through United Nations peacekeeping or a disarmament treaty for a weapon of mass destruction. But if you become passionate about your work, it's very difficult to identify the point at which you're making a difference or having an impact, because I'm not approaching this topic from the point of view of I did so much and became successful or made money. This is more about how many people was I able to influence. And one of the biggest ways for me to measure the impact that I was having was my role in these sectors as a woman. Especially in the peace and security sector around the world, especially in the international system, there aren't a lot of women. But where there are, you immediately are able to identify you had an impact because you were a woman, because you brought that experience with you and you were there. And I think that for a movement of solidarity of women that we are here, I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about that. For example, in the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, when you talk about the security sector, and part of my job was, I was part of the analytical center, so we would analyze intelligence from the ground on where civil war conflict situation was happening, where it was likely to develop, and then sort of inform the mission leadership so that you could have adequate force deployment or humanitarian protection of convoys in that area. And it's true that when we talk about security, we usually talk about it in a very militaristic, slightly masculine sense. So there is, 2 tribes who are fighting each other, even stealing each other's cattle. That's a security challenge. From the civil war, this ethnic conflict point of view. But when you have sexual violence against women, gender-based violence from any side in the conflict, that became more of a civic space issue or a human rights issue or a law and order issue. And that's true of any society. It's not just true of that particular civil war situation. If you're a woman there, and this is where I think the unique strength of women comes in accelerating not only your own passion and opportunity, but opportunity for others, is to be able to say, I think we should be reporting on violence against women, because it's very much war against women that's happening, and it's very much a part of our security discourse, and we must include it. But just generally, being a woman in this space, there are so many times, especially in disarmament, in weapons of mass destruction, you find yourself in a room which is just men in suits. And it's literally, it could be 99% to 100% of that entire conversation at the international level. There was a picture of an army chiefs meeting on peace and security issues that happened somewhere in Geneva or Vienna or something. I remember seeing that picture online recently, and it was just 100 men, all of them in their military uniform, and talking about peace and the steps we have to take next. I think without essentializing the role of women, without insisting that women come with a certain biological characteristic that makes them different. I never want to make that argument. Of course, women and men are, in terms of physical strength, etc. There are some biological differences there, but I think mostly we use it the biological difference argument to oppress women or to stereotype them or something else. I never like to use that. But just the very experience of being a woman, being aware of those vulnerabilities, being aware that as a woman you navigate a civic space differently, you're in a city differently, you navigate a war differently, you experience every challenge and every opportunity so much more differently because you are one of 50% of the world, but also one of the most oppressed communities anywhere in any country. That is a very important input into the policy, the public policy space, whether that's in peace and security, whether it's in development, an issue like sanitation, an issue like climate change. And for me, that was, it's important if you're talking about your power and passion to not dismiss that. Being a woman has, it will provide you the opportunity. Unfortunately, it comes from a lot of injustice to really make a difference in other people's lives. So I think I'll just say that as my introduction to the work that I do and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Now we have Vaishali here to speak in this session. Please come ahead.
And mic, or is this okay? It's fine? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to give a quick intro to who I am, what I do, and then like Navila said, if we can just sort of talk, after all of the speakers are done, and just sort of have a discussion, because I think this is a 1-hour session, so it might be more useful. So just to kind of introduce myself. So I have been running a tech company for the last 7 to 8 years, and we've been doing it as a consultancy. It was more like a services, sort of business. And I started straight after my undergrad in engineering. So basically, virtually with no mentorship, with no understanding of what I was doing. Nobody in the family to look up to who's into business already, and no mentors and nobody in the ecosystem really, apart from people telling us, you guys are swimming against the tide, and this is not the time to do things, and go get a job, and why are you not doing that, why are you starting up, things like that, right? So it was a struggle, but I learned a lot along the way. And in fact, in the middle, I was able to take up time to educate myself, not a year or 2 years, because I couldn't do that. In my head, it was like, no, the company needs my time. But I put the company first in front of myself, and we ended up doing a lot of. I ended up doing a lot of programs. So I did something with the UN also under UNCTAD, the EMPRITIC. I did courses at ISB and Stanford, and anything that I could do. I met a lot of people, attended a lot of conferences. Constantly trying to learn from people and figuring out what it was that we were doing wrong. And for the longest time, I had this sense of failure. In fact, for the initial few years, it felt like that it was my fault, that there was something wrong that I was doing, that we were not able to make a difference, real difference, or really change how people started using the kind of tech we were working with. It was all so sort of inward looking that for the longest time I didn't even want to meet people, just for the fear of, oh my God, like people are going to say that you failed or you're doing this wrong, or I can't. It's embarrassing for me to even tell people that I'm struggling here, because you have to present, and I think this is probably also an identity crisis, and with being a woman, where you feel like you need to be the strong one, you need to kind of put that face out there, because people expect you to be weak, they expect you to come crying and say, yeah, I messed up, or they expect that you fail, and there'll be 20. Exactly. And then the 20 people will come and say, we told you so, and I could see my own family in the forefront of that group. Because I think my entire life I've basically been the kind of believer of, change or, rebellion or challenging the status quo. And so I was the first girl in my family, in fact the first kid in my family to do engineering at all, even to take up science. And then, and everything was on me, the onus was on me to do all of this. It's not that someone told me to. And looking back, I feel like, the interests I had they lay predominantly in English literature and in history. And I probably would have taken it in a different world, in a different, hypothetical scenario. But because internally I felt like I had to move the needle and show that no, women or, people in a Marwari family can do science and pursue STEM and engineering as a degree, and I was a good student, so I did it. But it's not that my interest had lain there when I started out. It was more of this constant space of trying to prove yourself, and I did that. And I remember, in my school days and even undergrad, a lot of people offered me modeling and acting assignments, And I said no to all of that because I was like, no, I'm more than just my body. And I have to prove that, I have a brain too. And what that did is, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's just the way I looked at it was, it can't be together. That there's something wrong with that and not with this. Because we made to feel so objectified that I think subconsciously for me, I had internalized that, if you're doing this, then you're a certain kind of person projecting a certain thing to the world, and to prove that you are able to use your intellect, you have to be in tech, or you have to do this or that, right? And that is something that I did for the longest time with my company too, and with events I would go to. It was always about I would feel like if there are a bunch of men in suits in the room, and that happens a lot in tech in any case. I had to have my voice heard because I'm like, otherwise why am I here? And so it became a very, I'm constantly trying to do things that I'm not comfortable with because I'm constantly pushing myself. And so I think I reached a point, and honestly, I never like public speaking because I'm a very shy person in general. I know it's difficult for people to believe.
You're pulling it off well.
But that's just how I am. I've never been the kind of person who likes attention or who likes to be in the middle of things. I've always been sort of like the playmaker, the midfielder, but not the forward. So, so it was also very difficult for me to push myself to do that and to be in front of people, to constantly be trying to make a difference. And I anyways went ahead and did that because I felt like at each point in my life, I was learning things, and then there were people who would learn from me. But again, all of this came from a place of constantly trying to prove myself, right? I remember at my dad's funeral, in Hindu custom, men do it. But I did it, like I did his cremation because I wanted to, and there was a big history behind it, and my family supported me. But I felt like, I had to be the strong person and I couldn't cry. And I never shed a tear in the entire process, because they say that you shouldn't cry when you're cremating someone because the soul doesn't get peace and all of that. So I had to be the strong one, especially for my mother. And what that resulted in was me not being able to process the grief for a long period of time. I actually didn't process it because I didn't let myself process it because I was so intent on trying to be strong, And so I think really what changed for me and the point of wanting to talk here was the idea behind reinventing myself, or the purpose behind it was, I think I reached a breaking point, with my health and with the priorities and with everything. And I finally realized that I had to stop, to a point where I physically injured myself. I've had like 2 spinal fractures in a period of time, and even that took a backseat to work because I had to. So I found the purpose in wanting to reinvent myself, and I kind of went into into this nature care hospital for about 47 days, and I would have stayed longer if they'd let me, or if they could have helped me. In any case, in their 40-year history, I think nobody did. But they just it was sort of my salvation. Like I was like, I have to change how I think, how I am, who I am, because I think I'd lost myself in this whole process. And then that really helped me because it started aligning things for me. It sort of, for me, felt like I had shed all of the things I had accumulated. Being able to shed that just physically made me feel like I'd lost weight. That there was so much off my shoulders. Of course, I didn't lose weight too. They basically starved me. But I really felt like I had sort of offloaded this whole layer or exoskeleton that I had built up over the years. And I found that even in that place, there are a lot of things that I do which I had assumed were just being forced on me, or I was doing it out of some sort of compulsion. But I ended up doing things there which made me realize that there is a certain way I think and I behave. And if leadership or being able to make a difference or challenging the status quo is part of who I am, I was doing it without intending to, even in that hospital, right, in whatever different ways that I did. And what that really did for me is get me to a place where I was able to understand more of who I was. And the point I'm making is because of that, today the person I am, I feel like I've made a lot of changes. I've sort of come 180 degrees from where I was, and that's a big thing for me. For example, I'm a huge foodie, so I would never think of going south the way that I have now. I'm much more spiritually inclined now. I pay more attention to things around me, to people, to relationships, and I'm not trying to prove anything anymore. And I feel like that has really changed, not just starting from who I am myself, but also how I see things around me, how I influence and affect things around me, and it's really made a big difference in my company too. And yeah, so I feel like that passion maybe that existed for a while, it just it's just transformed into this person who I am today, and I think there's still a long way to go. But but I'd love to have a conversation around this with all of you and understand what your definitions of reinventing yourselves are. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we have Avnaksh here to speak at this session. Please come.
Hi everybody. Okay, I suppose our heading is how to find purpose, power and passion to reinvent ourselves. I'm going to go off the tangent here, because as we know, the word reinvent implies that we have to make changes, which we do sometimes, especially if we're stuck in a rut. That can happen for various reasons. You lose a job, you get divorced, or you have a child and you're stuck at home. Well, similar things happen to me. I think we have heard so many stories about women. We come roughly from the same background, gone through crisis, and similar. I went through a crisis, a few actually, and every time you have to change and adapt to whatever happens. And well, the first thing you do is, if you're stuck in a rut, you basically clear your clutter. But that's not so easy to do, because you have your books or you have clothes and so on. It's a mindset. So you have to clear your mindset first, and to focus on what you want to achieve next. Just a little bit background on myself. My name is Avnaksh, and I'm from the UK, and I have 3 companies I run, and they varied. One kind of ties in with the other. One's called Ishkama, which deals with the whole physical, mental being, to achieve the best you can by changing your mindset. So in a way, reinventing yourself. The other one came out of it, which is the beauty business, because if you look good, you feel good. Yeah. The third one is totally unrelated. It's more because we deal with homeless back in the UK, so it is a property business. And going back to Ishkama, the way it was set up, I was working in the civil service. I lost my husband when I was 26, with 2 young children under 5. And so you had the banks wanting to take your house away. You didn't feel like going back to work. You're a bit depressed, but you don't realize you're depressed. You feel, I'm fine. I'm fine. And you don't want to tell your colleagues, because you're in charge of staff, and you don't want your bosses to know that you can't handle what you're going through, because it will affect your job. Because it's true. Employers don't want people who are so worried about their own personal life that they're not giving their 100%, or bosses feel that you won't give your 100%. So you carry on, you change yourself, you adapt, you learn new skills to make sure that you can make money to pay for your daily bread and butter. We were discussing that in the other seminar. And so, but your salary pays for your bread and butter, but it doesn't pay for any other activities, not for your school's nursery or your school with children, dance classes or other activities. So you have to develop other skills. I set up a B&B, made some money that way, right? And then started teaching part-time from home, because I couldn't leave my children. And so I had to clear some of the clutter. So I had to get rid of things that belonged to my husband that I felt I no longer needed to use. So that's one way. And then focusing on what is good in your life. You know, well, for me, the good in my life, I have a very good, sportive friendships, friends. Even my boss was very good. I don't think any boss would say take as much time off as you want to get your, you know. So yeah, and especially as he's known to be anti-women, right? But he sent a message in a roundabout way through my deputy. So that's one thing. I have a good family background. So you think, well, I'm blessed. There are other people that don't have as much as I have. And so when you focus, you actually, I think the universe opens up. Because if you think good, only good things can happen. Not always, but sometimes. Because, like they say, after darkness comes light. Similar. So you have to imagine that there's no way the universe will let you suffer for a long time. It has to change. And then, what about making positive changes and choices in your life? You know, just changing, like, I don't know if most of you do this, but I did at that time, and I would have never thought I would do, because I'm not that fond of food. I eat it because it keeps, we need the energy, right? I don't like sweets, which I know is unusual, you know, not chocolate, not sweets, occasionally, you know, and that's once a month sometimes, right? And and you think, how can I change myself? How can I make positive choices? Then you look, what do I want next out of my life? For myself, my staff, my office, my children. I have 2 daughters. And so you train your mind to come up how you can achieve this. So you have, even sometimes without thinking, you're having that idea. Like you're visualizing where you want to be in 4 years' time, 3 years' time, or whatever, 10 years' time. And sometimes life throws you and then you have to change your image again. And then we back home in England have a saying, a change is as good as a holiday. Even changing your furniture around, you know, because the energies become stagnant. So if you move your furniture a bit, you come in the next day, you feel the room's feeling positive. So make a little bit. It can be only a little bit. Instead of, say, walking, you know, in the park, you could go, if there's a beach near, you go to the beach for a change. Or if you drive to work, if it's not far, take the bus. You might find you meet some connections. I, like most people, tend to drive. And occasions when I have gone on the bus or the train, I have found that, you know, you sit next to somebody and you just start talking and you make friends and you learn something different. And also sometimes, you know, the other way is to push yourself a bit, go the extra mile. You know, if you feel, like you said, you're a shy person, so am I. You know, before I got kind of thrown into doing marketing, I was very shy. I was like, no, I'm an Indian housewife, you know. And I said to my boss, and he was like, no, you have to take charge because we want results, and you get results. So it's the first time I went there, and it was a good thing I was sitting behind the conference table. My knees were knocking, and I thought, what's that sound? And it was my knees. But over here, I looked confident because I kept giving myself that. I'm confident. I'm Elizabeth Taylor, like my school teacher told me when they put me on the play. He said, "Who's the actress you admire the most?" And I used to admire Elizabeth Taylor. You know, I loved her eyes. You know, and plus, I think she had dark hair. And being Asian, that's the only person I could relate to, the dark hair. And I was like, okay, so I went up there, but you know, it didn't look like at 14. You don't look like Elizabeth Taylor on a skinny little thing. But after that, every time I went to do a speech and stood up, and I used to think, I'm beautiful, I'm clever, I'm intelligent, and I'm gonna go and give that speech. And it does work, because you're giving yourself that self-talk. And the other thing is, I came into meditation quite late. And that came around when I had my second obstacle, life-changing, when I had a car accident. And hurt my leg, and I had a brain injury, which they didn't discover for 4 years. In my mind, I was still the same person. I couldn't understand why people couldn't understand what I was saying. It was garbage. So one day, when after about 4.5 years, I came across a psychologist. Like most people, you mention mental health is a no-no. I didn't want my boss's to, but it was actually my company's doctor who said to me, listen, I'm sure you had a head injury. And so she said, because I had memorized things, but I couldn't read. I couldn't, like A, I didn't know what that was. I didn't even know it was an A. So I had to read things, do read speeches, learn to train my mind. So everything, and then walking. I mean, for a while I was limping, but now when I wear heels, I'm controlling my mind, saying, no, I'm walking like I'm on the, walk, model, all right. But then when nobody's looking, it's like, because you have to look the part sometimes to get bids for jobs, all right. And I took up Reiki after that because I was looking for answers, because I believe in God. And I was saying, God, why have you given me these problems? I lose my husband. I wasn't even keen to get married, but once I was married, I did, And then I'm becoming successful. I'm going up the career ladder, and I've been told I've got this fantastic, being the first brown face and woman as well, which is a great opportunity and opening other doors. Now you do this to me, and you're shaken up because you're thinking, what's the point? And so I did everything everybody else does. I'm praying, I'm going, and that's when I got involved with Reiki. And Reiki and different kind of meditation scenes.